pleasure to have you with us for this webinar. I have personally been learning so much from you, and I would love for our audiences to learn more from you today. I know that you have such an illustrious career and so many domains that you are considered an expert in. So, if you could just quickly talk about your background,
Sure.
that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Kiran. Thank you so much for inviting me for this. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be here and speaking to the audience here. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'd love to share my little experience that I have across various companies and brands that I work with to help anybody that I can in the bargain. Thank you so much. So just to give you my background, I've been in corporate for about 30 years. I worked for about 30 years. And in these 30 years, the first 10 years of my career, I've worked with traditional sales and marketing companies. And the next 20 years, I worked essentially in digital companies, or I call digital first companies. And so I've seen two sides of the coin, what is called traditional business development and marketing and sales, and then moved on to a far more digital kind of a business. And in digital also, it's been interesting to see the 2-3 phases of digital evolution that we've seen. Now we saw the first phase, which was very news, email, laptop, PC driven, and then that gave way to the second phase of development, which was probably just the early mobile adopters and the people who got onto the mobile with some connectivity, and then all of a sudden we saw the 4G era, which was the whole era of smartphones and 4G, and that entire combination of smartphones, 4G, and cheap data has just given an explosion, or just exploded the entire digital category. It's interesting to see what now, as a result of this pandemic, what's happening. And we're probably seeing significant acceleration of digital marketing. We're seeing significant acceleration of digital businesses, and the business that you run is probably proof that how adoption of digital has changed consumer habits, and how consumer habits have changed because of the pandemic. And all of this is creating great business opportunities. And I can see you are chasing one very large business opportunity out there. So it's exciting, it's great fun, and happy to be here.
Wonderful. Now, I know your personal experience in scaling so many digital brands, and not just at maybe a national level. So many of them have been scaled globally or in Southeast Asia. How do you think in today's time, or why do you think in today's time it's important to build a brand right from the word go? So a lot of companies, startups launch, or even small time entrepreneurs, or in our case, academies. What do you think is the importance of building the brand or keeping the brand in mind right from day one?
So I think it's very important to have a very strong brand building, or a very strong ethos of brand building in your company. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's important for each one who's starting their academy, or starting their business, or starting their digital business or a digital service, to think of what the brand is. What does we stand for, and what is the brand that we're trying here? What is the brand that we're trying to create here? The whole story of brand creation starts from the consumer, and how it's important to focus on what the consumer need is. And I think that's where the whole brand story starts. And it's important for you to first identify what the consumer needs, then provide the same thing with the right emotional cues and with the right rational need or the rational cues for the consumer. And I think it's important to make sure that you're putting this in a competitive environment. You're trying to make sure that your product is unique compared to what the others in the market are offering in some way or the other. And I think this mental message that you are able, or this mental image that you are able to create in the mind of the consumer, which is unique, which is related to your brand, which is related to your product, then becomes that brand, that complete brand journey that a consumer wants. And I think it's important to create that brand out there, to create that connect with the consumer, to be original, to be unique, and then go out and communicate with the consumer and bring them in. So I think it's extremely important in this noisy world to have a strong, unique brand identity out there.
According to you, is this a skill or an ability that anybody within the organization could develop, or an entrepreneur, an academy builder, a content creator, or an expert? Could they really get started without having an external team support, or just with, let's say, a member or two member support? Do you think it's possible to start on that journey and make a tangible impact?
Most entrepreneurs are supermen or superwomen, and they can pull off anything in the world. But my suggestion to most people is hire experts, hire the right agency, make sure you have the talent who can help you go through this journey. This is a science. A lot of what we do in brand building and experience creation is a science. A lot of entrepreneurs can do a lot of stuff on the vision, creating a roadmap, telling the story about a product. But I think to execute some of these things, they need uh, they need specialists, and each of these fields is becoming a very specialized space. So my submission to anybody who's getting into uh, creating an academy, or creating or putting together courses, or putting together any of these things, should always look for experts.
The question there is, how expensive does it get? A lot of these entrepreneurs that start up using our platform, or launching their courses, start with very low budgets. They start touching a few lakhs within the first few months. What are the parameters? How much should somebody budget for it? And what kind of experts are we talking about? These
So
are
I think
some of the things that we need to navigate through when we are starting up. So what's your take on this?
So I think there are two aspects to it, and sometimes we mix these aspects. Uh, there is an aspect of communication which can get expensive. Then there is the whole aspect of branding, and I think there's the whole brand is not just the logo, and I think that's the important thing. That the brand is much more than just the logo. It's about having a vision for the product. It's about making sure that the experience that you are giving is up to what your promise to the consumer is, what the consumer is expecting. So there are multiple aspects to it. So there is the aspect of making sure that there is a consumer out there, you are meeting his expectations through the product that you're giving. The product is packaged in a way that the consumer wants it. There is a certain amount of look, feel, experience that you're able to give. It's aspirational at the end of the day. And if the product is very good, you will realize that you need very little communication, and the consumer himself becomes the advocate for your product. So you have to reach a point where the consumer becomes your advocate. Until the time the consumer doesn't become your advocate, you'll always be spending significant amount of money, and it will never have the right ROI. So at the end of the day, you have to figure out what is the strength of your product, how are you communicating this to the consumer, how are you focusing on a good, sharp customer base who's then going to become an advocate for you and take it and bring in more and more users. So understand, from a large mix of users out there, you need to bring in a large set of organic users or people who are coming on their own. If every single user of yours is going to be a paid user, you will never be able to scale your product beyond a point. So therefore, if you think that a very large part of maybe 70-80% of your customer base is coming because it's a paid traffic, then you have a problem in the experience, you have a problem in your brand, you have a problem in your experience. So, and your the way you are engaging with your customer, and you're not able to build the right trust. So go back to your brand promise, go back to your entire marketing mix and redo it.
No, those are some excellent suggestions, and I mean, I love that about you. You're so candid and helpful in every conversation that I've had with you. I really want that to happen, and I've benefited so much from what you've told me and suggested over the course of the last year. Now, for let's say somebody starting with just first 10 users, and they've
Hmm.
got a course on, let's say, guitar. This is a small time academy. I'm just trying to customize it more for the kind of audiences that we have and the kind of people who launch courses on our platform. So let's say a guitar expert who's got 10 users that he's starting with. What are the first steps that he should start with? And you did address that, go back to the brand messaging and some of those. But if I just wanted a quick checklist, the first 3 points or 5 points that he needs to make sure he's covered, what would those be?
So if he has if he's created an experience or a brand or a story that he's created, say for example it's a guitar class, okay, so there's a guitar class which he wants to now make sure is available across the country, uses the Nourish platform, reaches out to his users, got his first 10 customers out there. My 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 submission to them is, at the right through the course, right through the journey of the consumer, please track the consumer and say, is he falling off? Are you able to retain his attention? Is he hungry for more? And when he finishes the course, what does he do at the end of the course? If you're able to track that journey and you're able to see the passion of the consumer right through, so the consumer wanted to come and learn something, you are able to give him a good course, and at the end of the course he's excited and he can learn something, he can upload a music clip that he created, put it on YouTube or social media, and tag your course saying that I learned this, is what I would look for. You also would want to have a chat with the person who's gone through the course to say, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, because that's your journey, that's your brand creation, that's your entire consumer connect that you're trying to do, and that's the trust you're trying to build. If you won that trust, rest assured he will go out and tell 10 more people to go and do the next guitar course, because guitar is such a visible form of art. He will go and play in front of 10 people. He is going to go and play in front of his parents. He's going to go and play in front of his relatives. People will ask, where did you learn this? I met you 6 months back. You didn't know guitar, and now I know that you're playing guitar and you're doing it so well. Where did you learn it? So when you say, no, I learned it on XYZ classes on Nourish, and then all of a sudden that brings in more and more users. So at the end of the day, your product experience is your brand. What marketing does and what communication does is to make sure that it feeds the frenzy that you are creating with your product.
So you've got to go out and start talking about it right from the first customer's feedback time. Um, and,
Absolutely.
and what you're
So which
suggesting
is why
is don't.
we always tell people, don't spend first. First, get your product right, get your experience right, get your first consumers and proof of concept right. If your proof of concept is right and your first few consumers are happy and they are ready to recommend you to the next few consumers, you've got the funnel right, you've got the whole piece right. Now go and communicate. So even if you then communicate with 50,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees, that will create a positive rub off and a positive funnel, which will give you a positive ROI.
That makes total sense. And I have seen in the past few months there have been companies that only specialize in letting you capture the consumer voice. They say that we will have give you software tools and reach out to capture the feedback, the testimonials, and then produce them, and then you can showcase them on the website. So what I'm trying to drive at is that I hear from a lot of content creators that there are so many offers, proposals that they get in the space of brand building, which are for different things that they could act upon. So how, I mean, like, what is a good budget? Which I've already asked you that, but a lot of people say that, okay, I can only possibly spend 20,000 rupees on this to begin with. Do you think there could be an impact that could be made with that money? If yes, how, and what will be the two things that you would suggest to this guitar guy to do with that 20K extra that he would want to spend on brand?
So, so I'm not going after the money, whether it's 20,000, 10,000, 5,000, and I think you can do it the same amount impact with 20,000 and 200,000 because you're not looking for millions of users. At 20,000, you have to understand you will only reach an X amount of users. So, what do you want to do? Who is your core audience? And by bar, I keep telling companies who are in the marketing space, please be sharp about your consumer base. And the first challenge that most people face is, अरे यार जो गिटार सीखना चाहेगा, I'm fine with him. Okay, that just doesn't work because you have to identify your TG. You have to put your head down and say, my core TG is an 18 to 24-year-old girl
Oh,
who lives in an urban setup, who lives in a joint family, who has time, who does this late in the night after the tuition classes are over, whatever. You have to make sure you understand your consumers very well. If you understood your consumer very well, you will make the right communication. You will make sure that your 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 classes say the same thing. The kind of preparation in terms of guitar classes, the length of the class will be right. The kind of messaging and communication that you're going to have with the audience is going to be right. How many classes you're going to have, all of that is going to be right. So the important thing is keep focusing on your product. Keep focusing on your product and then think of the budget on marketing it. If you are constrained on the budget on marketing this whole thing, then you have to focus on two things, whatever your budget is. Less budget means make sure you are driving communication either through social, if it's a local service and you are in that area and you have presence socially, so make sure you are doing stuff on social. And a lot of art forms like guitar and all are very prone to positive social spread. So I would focus on social, or I would focus on PR. Okay, so these are the two pieces that I would spend significant amount of time and effort. So if it's a corporate type service, which is image improvement or a image consulting kind of a service, or a form of making better presentations or stuff like that, I would focus a lot on PR. If it's a wine tasting thing or a corporate etiquette kind of thing, I focus a lot on PR and less on social. Because social can be very difficult to reach. So I would then decide what it is. The second piece I would look at is making sure that you have very strong data focus in your marketing. And I think most people don't pay attention to the amount of data that they can collect, the amount of data that's passing through their systems, the amount of money that they're spending on whether it is on PR, on social, or just marketing online, or whether it is search or anything else. The amount of data that goes through the system and is junked every day is waste of time, waste of money. it needs to be stored and managed well. So I think there's a huge opportunity for most brands to focus on either being very, very data centric or focus on PR and social with limited money to reach out.
No, that makes great sense, and I love the beginning that you started this answer with you're talking about persona, and we get taught this at every single point during marketing, and all experts focus on this. So I love what you're saying, and I think a lot of people miss that get your persona, get your target audience super right, and I think this is so important, which we forget, and we try and feel that everybody is our target audience. So when you mentioned that specific, you address that specific suggestion, are you saying that, and I'm asking this from the perspective of what we do as well as what our audiences like to do. Are you saying that even focus on the demographics and the region that you will be going with, because Facebook or any other platform lets you advertise everywhere? If yes, then what's your suggestion? Go small, like with a city in the beginning, or experiment, let's say guitar classes, because they're online, they could be taught anywhere. Like a guy sitting in Lucknow could be teaching in Kanpur, Nagpur, wherever, and what's your suggestion? Should he select one city or go broad?
So my suggestion to anybody starting and having limited in marketing, everybody has limited money. Even the biggest guy has limited money. So at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, please don't use a machine gun approach. Please use a sharp sniper approach. It always works. And early on in the journey of a brand, it's always better to use a sniper approach than a machine gun approach. The machine gun approach just doesn't work. It's a lot of wastage of money, and you'll run out of money very quickly. So my suggestion is, I'd rather have be a good or be very impactful in one city, then pick up a Lucknow and say, I'm going to focus on Lucknow. I'm going to make sure that I get virality in Lucknow. Because if the product picks up, you will also get virality in the local market. People will talk locally about it. If you are fragmented with 1 lakh rupees to spend every month across the country, remember, you will get no word of mouth. You get no word of mouth. Word of mouth spreads face to face with people. So you need to get that word of mouth kick happening for you, because you're focusing in a certain market. You'll get good word of mouth in that market, and people will build, there's a trust that gets built. And then you will see the impact on your product and your service.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I have one of the audience member, Rishi, who's asking a question. I've just pasted it here in front of you. So he's saying, please suggest if I should change my social media strategy completely during such uncertain times. So he's probably trying to ask you, what should be the change or how should I react? I mean, that's probably the angle to this.
So I think we should go back to the basics of what the whole story is. And I keep going back to what are the building blocks of a brand or a experience or a product strategy. There are 3 steps, and you have to go back to your key focus 3 steps that you have to build on. There is the vision, there is the action, and then there is the story. You why did you start what you started off? What was the vision with which you started off? Okay, that's the core idea. That's your starting point. That vision has to relate to some action. So my vision is to be the best guitar class, online guitar class in India. And I want to offer youngsters in the age group of X to Y an absolutely phenomenal music class or a guitar class. And you start off with that vision. I want to create a good musician. I want to create some amazing musician. So you start focusing on the vision side. Then from the vision, you start creating an action and saying, because my audience is like this, because my vision is like this, because my target audience is like this, I'm going to create classes in this format. I'm going to create content in this format. I'm going to create an experience for my consumer in this format, which could be in the form of videos, it could be in the form of text, it could be form of interaction, it could be in the form of live, it could be social media interactions, all sorts of stuff around it. That then becomes the story. Then you go out and tell the story, okay, I am doing this because I want to do. That's your communication part. Therefore, when you also start your social media strategy, you have to go back and start thinking, यार मेरा vision क्या था? Where did I start my social media strategy? What was my objective? When I started off on that, then what did I do? And what was my communication with the consumer? Or what was my storytelling? In these difficult times, in these pandemic times, do I need to change some of my messaging? Do I need to sound a little more different? Do I need to feel a little more different? Will my consumers react differently at this point in time? Therefore, will my messaging be different? So I think some realignment in your strategy has to happen in these times. Go back to your vision, your action, and your storytelling. Go back to those three basics.
Do they need to reset their vision? Do they need to go less ambitious, uh, still stay aggressive, or go with the vision they initially had? And it's a philosophical, probably, or an economical question. I don't know what should be their reaction. How bad the times are.
So I would go back to uh, fundamentally looking at a business and saying, are you COVID headwind business? Are you COVID tailwind business? Okay, if you're a COVID headwind business and you're probably in the travel business, you just want to shut shop and wait for this problem to get over for some time. Okay, then there's no point spending at this point. If you're in a COVID tailwind business, okay, and you're, say, for example, in a guitar training, online guitar training business, education business, okay, then my suggestion to you is go out and do more than you would normally do. Okay, focus much more on reaching out to consumers because consumers are spending more time on social. People are spending more time online. Figure out ways in which you can engage with them better, how they can use their time better, how they can make their life far more valuable in these difficult times, and communicate it in a different way, but make sure you're communicating more in these difficult times because you are in a tailwind business.
No, that makes total sense. I completely agree with you there. I think some people will have to step back and look at it. I have a question that Ankit has asked, which is again in continuation of what we were talking about. So he's asking what factors make a brand's online presence strong and unique from competition? What are those core areas that he needs to think? And Ankit runs an academy on the platform. So I personally have come across his academy. So what are the factors that you would suggest in a domain that other competitors also thrive?
So, what are the pieces that I would look for? Uh, I would look for experience. What is the consumer experience? What is the brand experience? The brand experience is not just about communication. The brand experience is about all that happens on the website, on the experience of how the course is delivered, what kind of course is given. So experience is one thing. Engagement with the user. How effectively are you able to engage the user? Are you able to engage with different users in a different way? And I think it's important today to up our engagement with users because in this digital world, you're not doing face-to-face meeting, you're not doing face-to-face training. So engagement and digital engagement becomes extremely important. Can you up the level of engagement in the digital world? Can you feed with a backup of somebody calling the customer and building that engagement level in some way? Are you getting enough feedback from the user and therefore feeling part of? See, the problem today is you're not feeling connected with any service because you're not physically going to that the training center. So you have to build that engagement and that connect with the user in a digital manner. This experience, the product experience, the training experience, plus the engagement will lead to trust. And today, the success of a product, on because our big products today are becoming digital, is all about trust. Why am I ready to swipe my credit card on X website and I'm not ready to swipe my credit card on another website is so much to do with trust. So I would focus on the product experience, I would focus on the brand experience, I would focus on the engagement that that product gives me. I would say what amount of trust are they able to build with me, and then I would then focus about saying, have I then got a complete experience that I'm able to give to the user? If all this is done, you will automatically come out unique from your competition. So uniqueness is today on the online world coming out of experience, engagement, and trust.
No, fantastic. This is some of these are so valuable. I mean, I just wish I could, and I'm going to work with you on this. I think we should possibly, at some point of time, build a course on this because I have attended some of your sessions even before you came on board with Nourish as an investor, and I still have a distinct. Feeling, memory, and notes to prove that that was one of the best sessions that I've attended in, in less than an hour. I mean, some of the things that you mentioned about were just mind blowing. I mean, the entire discussion around what are the key parameters of a business, how do you make sure that all of those are healthy, and the entire dashboard discussion. So I would recommend to my audience here that I hope they're making notes. We'll also get our team to possibly do a small hack sheet on what you're suggesting for everybody to benefit from and attach it with the session. Now, one of the other questions that people often ask is that if you spoke about the brand experience, what is it that gives the perceived image of a brand? Is it the website? Is it the content that goes there? Is it the video, the design, the language, or all of it combined? And what are the non-negotiables there? So, and this I'm
Everything
asking
is
of you.
non everything is non-negotiable.
Okay, that's an easy one.
Everything is non-negotiable. You cannot go in with a 90% experience today. You can't today go in and say, I'll put in 90% product. Today you have to put in 110% product. You can't do any shabby work because that impacts your brand. So a brand is not just your logo or your image or your visual design or your website or the way the video is shot. It is all of it, and which is why I call it experience. आपका experience कैसा है across the product? So from the time I got to know you, to the time I bought your product, to the time I experienced every bit of the service, till the time I learned something and closed it. All of that is an experience. So you can't say नहीं मैं सिर्फ marketing अच्छी करूँगा and I won't sell my product well, and I won't create a good enough video, and I won't create a good enough experience. And my video will sometimes work and sometimes it won't work, and my website will sometimes open, sometimes not open, and my credit card will sometimes swipe and it will not sometimes swipe, and I'll get an error. Won't work. It has to be a foolproof thing. And I'm seeing some questions which have come that I've tried 2-3 different digital marketing agencies and I've ended up burning money. The problem is normally not the digital marketing agency. The problem normally is the product, and we blame the digital marketing agency. So it's like saying, I have a fever and I'm treating the fever, but you're not treating the core problem. So the core problem is either experience, it is the engagement, or the trust or the mistrust that a product consumer has with you. You're going wrong in some of these things, but we are blaming communication for it. Communication comes last. Communication is only telling you, yes, this works, please now come and use this service. That can't be going wrong too much.
Yeah, no, this is a common question, and thanks for addressing that. I mean, we had Sunil ask that they had burned fingers with a digital marketing agency, so I'm just highlighting that Sunny Dhaya actually was asked this question, and then ICMI Learning has focused on that again. That's a very common perception question. And a situation with a lot of content creators on the platform. In fact, we
So
are.
a problem is there. Killer, this problem is always there because you are not as an entrepreneur or as a course creator or as a businessman, you are not sure मेरा audience कौन है. You are not sure मेरा course की value क्या है. You are not sure how good the expectation of the consumer is or what the expectation of the consumer is with the product itself. So you're creating something which is a fast food restaurant, but the consumer is expecting a luxury restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're telling your marketing agency, oh, you brought the wrong guys in, they don't buy anything.
But I'll tell you something there. So, being there, the expectation as a startup entrepreneur usually comes is that why don't they know everything? Like, why don't they know that I need a luxury, that I'm running a luxury restaurant? So, I know this is, you would say that it's your brand, you've got to take control of it. But a lot of people come to me and say, they've got to know everything. Like, I'll pay them money and they are the ones who'll just drive the business.
So I hope there's no digital marketing agency floating around here. They'll kill me for it, but at the end of the day, they're a marketing agency. Their job is to execute, and we all know how much we pay them. Okay, so we don't pay them enough, so they don't bring in enough strategy into the whole thing. They only bring in execution, and then we tell them do this. Oh, they'll ask you, "Acha, I'm setting up Facebook ads. Where do you want me to target?" अरे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? It's an online course. Can you target all over the country? Okay, I'll target. Oh no, target all over the world. Fair enough. Okay, I'll target all over the world. Now, which creative to use? Arey, my designers created this creative. Can you put it out? Have you tested it? Have you not tested it? Will this work the same way in Chennai versus Delhi versus Guwahati? There's no clue. Okay, so we put the same thing out there. We tell the agency, "Tum kar do ye fatafat. I need 6 leads." We'll also, crank up the whole thing and say, "Acha, let's get the 6 leads. Let's try for 6 months. We'll try for 3 months." And then at the end of the day, we are all disillusioned by it. So my test for all entrepreneurs is, how well do you know your customer? How well do you know your product? How well do you know your service? Are you focusing on experience? Are you focusing on engagement? Are you focusing on building trust? Is your product talking, being your marketing vehicle or not? Look at all the successful digital services in this country or worldwide. They've all been built by minimal marketing effort.
So true. So true. Couldn't be well said, better said than this. So I agree with you. Now we are getting close to the time that we had allocated, but I have so many questions that people want answered. So I'm going to pick a few of them here. Sukriti is asking, how shall I gain loyal customers for my newly started online academy? You've addressed a lot of this, so maybe any special or any recommendations for her. I'm not sure what academy she runs, but generally.
So, Sukriti, my suggestion to you is loyalty will come once you understand your user and you understand the consumer's need. If you're able to capture both of these things in your course, you will get loyal users. If we try and create very general courses for masses which are nebulous out there, you will never satisfy anybody. You will have very happy people, but you will never have very, very loyal people. So, there is a very there is an index that you, and probably online there are lots of these indexes available. There are people who will try out your product. There are always people who are going to try out your product. There are people who will then, so there's an NPS example, your net promoter score. I don't know whether you heard about it, but if you've not heard about it, please go and read about NPS. So, you want people to be so happy with your course or so happy with what they've got that they go and tell somebody. If your course is not meant for a certain audience and it's meant for general audiences, you will never have very happy people and never have loyal users who will go and tell 4 other people. And my index for anybody is, अगर word of mouth से लोग नहीं आ रहे हैं, you have a problem on your hand. No amount of marketing can help you.
That makes so much sense, and this brings me to one of the fundamental questions that a lot of content creators ask. So in India, passion entrepreneurs, people who are able to monetize their skills, passion, and by teaching, by creating content, have one big question in front of them, that if I am an engineer and I like guitar, or I like music, or dance, and I'm now considering becoming a passion entrepreneur, what is the time that I start thinking about the brand and my ability to teach one of these? Will that impact the way my brand is structured? So, what I'm trying to ask here is, how do they choose their niche? The questions they should think from a brand point of view, even before they've built or decided upon their entrepreneurial domain.
So it's part of the thought process and part of the vision. So you don't wake up one morning and saying, I'm going to teach guitar. If you start a guitar class or you start any class, you'll say, Acha, do I want to teach classical? Do I want to teach Western? What are the things that I want to teach? What is your passion? So if you are good at something and you think you can, teach somebody on that, you will have to focus on that audience. If you're going to teach Western tunes or you're going to teach, Bollywood tunes to people, your audience automatically changes. Okay. Then you say, no, I'm going to teach Hindi, Bollywood tunes to my audiences. Fair enough, you're going to do that. And who is your audience? And where is Bollywood popular? So you have to figure out the top 5 cities in this country where Bollywood is successful. Okay, and then what kind of people listen to Bollywood tunes and stuff like that. You got your TG automatically out there. In that TG, pick up the priority and say, oh, I think Mumbai seems to be a big market. Let's focus on Mumbai and get the audiences in that age group hooked on to me. Once I get a start, once I get the first 20 people, 30 people, then we'll figure out what we want to do and how to move forward. But if you go out and say, no, to start a guitar class, anybody in the world who wants to learn guitar will come to me and I'll do well. We'll never have the loyalty factor. We'll always have very interested people, but they'll never be 10 on 10 on, they'll never rate you 10 on 10. And if they're not rating you 10 on 10 or 9 on 10, they'll not tell anybody.
No, this is great, because I see people choosing domains not considering all of these factors to be of as much importance as you're saying they should consider from day one. And this gives me a thought that I think we should, from our end, build probably a checklist and write more about it. What are the things they should think about even before they begin and enter into a domain.
So Kiran, what happens is most of us start off by saying, I want to make some money. And I think online passion education is a great way to make another source of income. It's an amazing source, have another parallel skill or a hobby that we can impart to somebody else. And I think what happens is people start with saying, मैं पैसे कमाना चाहता हूँ. But in that journey of making money, we forget the basic steps of saying, what do I do well? What do you think I can teach well? What is the brand that I want to create? What do I want to be known for? Why is it important to do a good job? Why will people recommend me to somebody else? Those 5-6 questions, the minute we are able to answer, we'll get an identity and a clear roadmap or a clear vision statement out there for ourselves.
Hmm. No, thank you so much. I think I would recommend a lot of people to watch this before they take that plunge, because I think after you've gone in, it becomes really tough to course correct. On some of the fundamentals that you could have thought about and put right into place before you begin on your journey. So I've got Vikram asking here, and this is going to be the last question considering we are going to overshoot on time. So Vikram's asking, apart from better sales, what are the factors which can be used to measure whether my online brand is making progress? You mentioned NPS.
I would look at how many people are coming recommended, which is very important. How many of my customers, so say for example, if you're selling 100 courses a month, out of those 100 courses, how many did you actually have to do marketing for? How many came word of mouth? How many came organic? So I think that's one very big number that you must add, and therefore also measure your sales to cost ratio, sales to marketing ratio, because that's what you that you are on the right track. If your sales to marketing ratio keeps dropping and your sales keeps increasing, but you don't need to spend the same amount of money as a ratio, then you are doing well over a period of time. But I won't do that very early on. In the early days, remember, you need to communicate, you need to make sure that people know about your product. But before you do that, make sure your TG is clear, your product is good, your experience is phenomenal, your engagement is top notch, and you build trust with your consumers. So put the testimonials out there, get testimonial videos from people, do all those pieces which will build experience, engagement, trust, and then your product becomes a brand.
Fantastic. And I remember you suggesting to me and sending me a mail about call to actions, how they could be really important on page. So staying on course with what is the ultimate goal that you want to achieve with whatever your product or property is. And I think that kind of also adds up to some of the goals that a lot of people carry here. But what I'm also trying to highlight here by this call to action statement is that I think some of the finer steps and actions that we could take goes unnoticed, and in the heat of things we are not able to implement them. And thank you so much for reminding so many of the big fundamentals and introducing to so many great things that we could measure. Now, if you had to pick one single suggestion to end this session with, or for our viewers to keep in mind, one most important thing that you would say, if you forget everything else, this is the core of the brand building, what would that be?
Have a brand story, have a vision,
Okay.
a larger picture. Make sure that you have a bigger than, larger than life picture. Don't have an ambition कि मेरे को पैसे कमाने हैं. Paisa is an outcome and not the starting point. So paisa will automatically come. My suggestion to anybody, especially in the passion domain, people who are teaching something which they know and are in a creative zone, creative art, or are going to set up their courses, my submission to you is have a larger than life image, passion, have a story, have a brand story out there. I want to do this. I look at Mr. Sanjeev Kapoor, and his passion and his story is amazing. I mean, he's on at this age, he's like almost feels like the youngest chef in the world. He wants to do everything. He wants to create such a beautiful brand for himself across the country. Why not us have that kind of a passion and that kind of a story for ourselves? If we can create something like this, people will enjoy what they're doing with us. They will trust us that much more and recommend us to that many more people.
No, so true about Sanjeev ji. I mean, that passion is exemplary. I mean, He's just unbelievable. So I agree with you there, and I think this is a great suggestion to end this session with. Have a brand story, and the story should be bigger than I want to make money. And this is amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all these excellent ideas, suggestions, and concrete steps that we could take actually. And I have personally benefited so much from some of these suggestions, and I don't think so I would have done a lot of things that we do today with Nourish at in whether it's our social media PR strategy. I think you've been instrumental in all of that. So thank you so much for that and for giving your time today. So I will talk to you backstage now. We'll end this session for our audiences, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a
Thank
pleasure.
you and all the best. And please go out and create lots of programs. People are hungry to learn these days, and we need more and more people to teach.
Thank you.